Good evening. Today I'm gonna explain and overanalyze how we killed Illgynoth the first time. Our guild is past at average level, so we needed to improvise. This setup requires 3 healer, 4 to 6 melee DPS, 10 to 12 range DPS and 1 tank. First thing first, tell your group that on the first phase 1, every range should spread around the entries since that part of the room we won't use later. Once the corruptor gaze appear, make sure your ranged makes a ball out of it or just drag it next to the wall. When the boss casts his third Eye of N'Zoth, tank should use a minor defensive cooldown. I personally use the trinket from N'Zoth, Lingering Psychic Shell. Same with the fourth one, I used Azeroth's Undying Give Azerite Essence from Eternal Pass. Since as a tank you don't want to move around too much, I rather use Divine Shield once the MC'd player reaches me. For the fifth one, I use Sigil of Warding, a trinket from Moat. Before we talk about phase 2, one thing about mind control players that you don't want to release them in the water since they will surely die. Before the fight, your team should create 3 groups. Each group should have 1 healer, 1 to 2 melee and 3 to 4 ranged. Each group should be assigned to one of the quarter of the room, and when phase 2 starts, everyone moves to their place. In phase 2, the one group kills the organ while the other 2 groups focus on the clouded corruption. Melee should focus on interrupting the organs. Each side should have 2 melee, if not, put some range like Elemental Shaman in the interrupt rotation. Clouded corruption should be tanked as close to the middle as possible, so both group that isn't killing the organ have easier time to focus down the ad. Both the ad and the organ should die as close to each other as possible. If the ad dying faster, order some range from the neighbor group to help with the organ. Once the boss emerges, everyone should stay on their side to make it easier to spread and have more space to move. Tank should face the boss towards the entry since no group is assigned to be there. Since group 1 killed the organ, they have a new job and that is to kill the upcoming bloods. Melee should stay on the boss. The reason I'm looking around is to find a player with gaze on it, so I can spellward him since I don't need it, but it can be used to deflect an Eye of N'Zoth if needed. If you get the gaze as a melee, instead of making a ball, you should run a half circle around the boss to make the beam go through the water. I would not advise to go through the water since it deals massive amount of damage. Instead run through some player, it's not a problem if some circle will explode on you. When phase 2 starts again, this time group 2 is killing the organ while group 1 and 3 will focus the head. Since group 1 doesn't have an organ, melee should focus down the bloods. In phase 2, the water won't hurt you and you can happily tank the head there. Once phase 2 is done, everyone should be at his place as usual, and the only difference is that the group 2 has to deal with the bloods as well. Tank doesn't require healing since the tank damage is so low. I would advise if you are a tank who can heal others, should help the healers. When the 6th eye is being casted, use Ardent Defender. Against 7th, you should use Undying Gift and Nuzov Trinket again, while on 8th and 9th should be deflected with Guardian of Ancient Kings and Blessing of Spellwarding. Once phase 2 starts again, I advise some healing cooldowns, and this time group 3 is killing the organ while the other 2 groups deal with the bloods and the clotted corruption. The head will die slower here since the blood takes some time to clear, so group 3 should focus the head as well when the organ is close to dying. When the boss pops up, use Bloodlust, but keep in mind that bloods are still priority targets. Melee might struggle with space, so once Bloodlust is over, 1 or 2 should just AFK so no one dies by a circle explosion. Once the boss reaches 50% health, players should finish up the damaged bloods and focus the boss only. Blood should be CC'd like roots and stuff. And remember, survivability is priority here. Avoid the purple stuff on the ground and don't let the bloods hit you. And that's about it. Obviously you never want to dispel, so no Cloak of Shadow, no Divine Shield, no Diffuse Magic, and nothing that dispels you since it can cause a wipe. With this, it was way easier for us to kill the boss. It took us like 2 or 3 times before we killed him. Range don't have to worry about to spread. With 1 or 2 less tank and 1 or 2 more DPS we can take our time since we won't hit Enrage, and that's about it. No one really needs to move and just hit the big target tummy.